Hey, GW coming to you live. As promised, we're going to do that review that I promised you yesterday, and I hope you guys saw my New Kids review, The New Kids. That was a very cool film, and I'll tell you what, they that was pretty neat. So check that one out. Like I said, we are going to talk about another movie, and you're probably wondering what it is. Well, we're going to end the suspense. It's Class of 1984. And it wasn't actually directed and made in 1984. It was actually made in 1982. And it was adapted from a screenplay from Tom Holland, who did Fright Night and Child's Play. You guys can look him up. He's a very, very awesome dude in the horror community. And it stars Perry King, who was on Lipstick in a movie called Mandingo. It also stars former actor and United Cerebral or Parkinson's activist Michael J. Fox. And before I go on, my wife doesn't watch most of these things. I ended up watching them and reviewing them. But she actually watched this one. She's made it the whole way through, so in my book, that's pretty cool. Of course, she does have a high tolerance dealing with me. But that's neither here nor there. But it was written and directed by Mark Lester, who did another movie with school students involving robot teachers, and I'm talking about Class of 1999. That film, we'll talk about that later on down the road, but it was a semi-sequel in name only. But this one, this is probably one of the most violent and controversial films of the 80s, and it also has Roddy McDowall. And the one thing you will take away, other than the fact that this film is ultra violent and it took cues from movies like The Blackboard Jungle and Lean on Me, and in my opinion, hyped them up, shot adrenaline into that formula, and it was a cross between that and I would say Deadbeat at Dawn with the violence level. Maybe not quite as gory, but it was there. So, this is a movie about Andrew Norris, played by Perry King. He is a music teacher from Nebraska, and he's this meek little, quiet type teacher. And from the first day in the school, he clashes with a gang led by Stedman. Stedman is, of course, played by famous actor Timothy Van Patten. The movie ratchets up tension very, very quick. It starts with a little confrontation in Mr. Norris's music class between Norris and Stedman, and then escalates to crazy levels. Smashing cars, gang rape, going to the police. The police are pretty much useless in this film. I'm going to tell you that right now. So it becomes a game of, a mind battle. And it also, if you haven't seen it, you wonder where this film's going next. Like a simple altercation, the next thing you know, these guys are smashing Mr. Norris's car. Mr. Norris smashes their car. Next thing you know, they bust in the house and gang rape Mr. Norris's pregnant wife, ending in one of the most violent and bloody conclusions to a movie that I think has ever been put on film. Also, Roddy McDowall is in the film. Roddy McDowall is one of the characters you will not forget, because toward the end of the film, he is just driven mad by Stedman and his gang destroying his biology lab. He actually holds them hostage at gunpoint, which has got to be one of the most shocking and outright most important moments, I would say, in horror, because that one scene, if you walk in on it, forces you to pay attention to what's going on. Like, if you've never seen the whole movie, walk in that scene, bam. I mean, it's right in your face. But it's really a hell of a thing to watch. Also in the movie, Michael J. Fox's character is named Arthur in the movie. They don't really, I think they credit him at the very end. But a lot of people think that he got Family Ties and then did this movie. Not so. While filming this movie, he got an offer to do Family Ties. So it was at the same time. So I just wanted to clear that up. You know? So there's that. However, we got to talk about, this movie. This movie is some people call it horror, some people call it action, exploitation. To me, it's a horror film because it makes inner city schools terrifying, especially roving gangs of people. And the reason I pulled the Deadbeat at Dawn deal out is because there's a scene in the very beginning where it's a gang fight and chains, whips, 2x4s, pipes are used, and that's right out of Deadbeat at Dawn. So Mark Lester, like I said, he pulled all these different things. And his inspiration for this was he went to his high school to just check it out, and he said that they were running around without any shirts, being delinquent, being violent, and Tom Holland, like I said, was writing the script, and the next thing you know... Now, a lot of people don't know about this film because it's one of those ones that when you talk about horror, you never really bring up Class of 84. But it's one of those ones you should check out. Also, there is a scene toward the end of the film where Roddy McDowall was trying to run down the street gang because they destroyed his lab. And during the filming of this film, the director, Mark Lester, sat down in the back seat while Roddy McDowall was driving. And Roddy McDowall drove like crazy, apparently, on the set, scaring Tom Holland. And the scene was never cut. However, you want to talk about cut material. The gang rape scene toward the end of the film was cut considerably because the first time this was submitted to the MPAA, it was too violent, so it got cut. Another scene that got cut, well, I'm not going to ruin it for you, it was toward the end of the scene where Andrew Norris's character, or Andrew Norris, played by Perry King, got ahead of myself there, kills one of the gang members in a woodshop area using a table saw. That scene was cut considerably because back then it was pretty violent. And I don't understand like some of the stuff the ratings board did back in the 80s, because they would be able to show all this stuff and then they would cut stuff that, made no sense. But that's just me. The other thing about this film is it's the first time one of the first times that the gang members were portrayed as punks. The punk movement was just starting, or not starting, was at the peak in the mid-'80s, and they dressed the part. And you can see by, their outfits and whatnot. And it adds a certain level of, okay, these people are different. These people are crazy, violent. There's also a slam dancing scene toward the beginning of the film, too, that was actually, when they were shooting, got shut down because the director, Mark Davis, thought it was going to get way out of control. So there's all these interesting little facts about this film. And when you look, too, at the way Michael J. Fox is in this movie, he is credited as Michael Fox. They had dropped the J. He adopted the J later because another actor was named Michael Fox. So he put the J in to be different, to distinguish himself, and to make him, well known in the acting community. So with that in mind, there is a lot of brutal stuff in there. As I just mentioned, death by table saw. We get to see a guy set on fire. Gang rape scene. One of the gang members gets pushed through a skylight and hung very graphically. There's all kinds of stuff in this movie, but when you watch it, you would never be able to make a film like this today. This thing is violent, set in a school, and if you made it today with everybody being as PC as what they are, you would have parents up in arms. You would have people saying it's not tolerable. You would have all this stuff. But if you want to see Class of 1984 and learn more facts, if you have Shudder, it was on Friday night. And I had no idea, because you really can't figure out what movies are on Shudder on, The Last Drive-In with Joe Bob until you watch them. I actually was going to watch my copy, saw it was on Shudder, and I went, oh, cool. Wife got up, she watched it with me, and I think she liked it on some level, but she's probably not crazy about it. But she was making fun of Michael J. Fox, who looks like a dork in the film, I'm not going to lie. The film is very brutal. Perry King said later that he was appalled by the violence in it, yet when you look at the game of one-upsmanship played in the movie by Perry King's character and Timothy Van Patten's character, it's almost justified on how Perry King's character, Andrew Norris, does react. So I just want you to keep that in mind. So definitely give Class of 84 a check. Like I said, they don't make them like this anymore. And if you want to get a cool DVD, Shout Factory has a pretty good copy of it. Now, rumor is, too, that gang rape scene I told you about that got trimmed, there is an X-rated version floating around somewhere. You could probably find it to download it, but good luck, happy hunting, because I've never even heard about it. I knew it, I've heard about it, but I've never really got to be able to put my hands on it. And I haven't watched the Shout Factory DVD, so I don't know if it's in there or not. Now, being as this was released in 1982, things have changed. They might have slipped it in it. Because this is a master copy, so I don't know. I haven't watched it yet. But even still, I want to say something too. Timothy Van Patten's character, Stedman, is probably one of the most psychotic students to ever grace the screen, and he does an awesome job at making you wonder what makes him tick, afraid of him, and also, he's a ticking time bomb, and he's really devilishly fun to watch because he gets so evil. He's almost on the level with Krug from Last House on the Left, from 72. If you guys can check that out, the comparison. But yeah, he's a pretty wicked dude. And when you watch him, there's just something so menacing about him. Like I said, you make that comparison. So definitely give Class of 84 a checkup. It is one of the most underrated horror action movies. And it has a great cast. And it's very controversial. And you do get to see a young Michael J. Fox, or Michael Fox, in the role of Arthur. And he is pretty awesome. You also get to see a fall off of a 3-story flagpole. That's pretty wicked. But yeah, check out Class of 84. Like I said, watch it on Shudder. You'll learn all this stuff about it. And it's definitely an underrated horror gem of the 80s. And what else can I say? It's a pretty kick-ass horror action movie. And they don't make them like this anymore. Stay tuned next week.